Have you ever wondered why you sometimes feel stuck or discouraged, even when you're putting in your best effort? Maybe it's not just the situations in your life, but the mental habits that weaken your inner strength. In this video, we'll explore the 10 bad habits that can make our minds weaker and how we can use Buddhist teachings to strengthen our mental resilience and live a more balanced and fulfilled life. Buddhist teachings give us a clear path to replace these negative habits with ones that strengthen us. Mindfulness, self-love, compassion, and acceptance are just a few of the tools we can use to build a healthier mind and a more fulfilling life. 1. The first habit is the negative mindset. This occurs when our minds constantly focus on things going wrong, failures and problems, completely ignoring the positive aspects of life. It's like wearing dark glasses that make everything around us seem bleak. Even in moments of joy or success, this type of thinking not only affects our emotional state, but also limits our actions. When we believe that everything is bad and that we cannot succeed, we end up avoiding risks and shying away from opportunities for fear of failure. Over time, this can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, where our negative thoughts create a limited reality. Buddhist teachings offer us solutions to combat this mentality. Mindfulness practice encourages us to observe our thoughts without judging them. Instead of being overwhelmed by negativity, we can recognize the negative thoughts and then choose to focus on the positive aspects of life. It's like clearing the clouds to let the sun shine again. Another valuable tool is metta meditation, or loving kindness meditation. It teaches us to cultivate positive thoughts for both ourselves and others, helping us change our perspective from negativity to compassion and kindness. By practicing these techniques, we can transform a negative mindset into a more positive and resilient one, which will help us achieve our goals and live our lives with more joy and balance. 2. The second habit that weakens our mind is complaining about things we cannot control. This habit drains our energy and keeps us stuck in states of dissatisfaction without taking real steps toward solutions. When we focus on what's wrong in our lives without being able to change those things, it's like holding a hot coal in our hands. We're only hurting ourselves. Constant complaining makes us feel powerless because we focus our attention on the problems instead of looking for solutions. In addition, this habit makes us forget about impermanence, a central concept in Buddhism, which teaches us that all things change. Nothing lasts forever, not even difficulties. When we complain, we tend to see problems as permanent, which prevents us from realizing that they too will pass. To combat this habit, acceptance becomes an essential practice. Buddhism teaches us to accept that we cannot control everything in life. It's like learning to dance in the rain instead of complaining about the storm. When we accept the things we cannot change, we free ourselves from the constant burden of dissatisfaction and can redirect our energy to what we can influence. Another key concept is letting go. In Buddhism, renunciation is not about resigning, but about releasing tension and attachment to things we cannot control. It's like letting go of a balloon, freeing us from the weight of unnecessary problems. When we let go of complaints, we create space for solutions instead of getting stuck in negativity. By adopting these Buddhist principles, we can learn to focus on solutions instead of problems, accept what we cannot change, and develop a stronger and more resilient mindset. 3. The third habit that can weaken our mind is not expressing our emotions and thoughts. When we hold back and don't express ourselves authentically, it's like having a treasure in a chest but losing the key. This tendency blocks our communication and prevents us from forming deep connections with others. When we hide our feelings, it's like shaking a fizzy drink without opening the bottle. At some point, the built-up pressure will explode. Over time, this can lead to stress, anxiety, and a sense of overwhelm. Instead of freeing ourselves from what is weighing us down, we sink into a state of confusion and tension. Buddhist teachings promote right speech, one of the core principles of the Eightfold Path. This concept means communicating with sincerity, kindness, and care. Every word spoken with care and compassion is like a seed planted that can grow into a garden of understanding and connection. By expressing ourselves clearly and authentically, we not only free ourselves from emotional burden, but also build stronger and more authentic relationships. Another essential practice is mindfulness. It helps us become aware of our thoughts and emotions without judging or repressing them. Through this mindful attention, we can notice our emotions and express them with clarity and compassion. It's not just words. Non-verbal language, such as gestures and facial expressions, also play an important role in self-expression. Authentic expression not only releases your own tension, but also contributes to the well-being of those around you. It's like opening a window to let fresh air into a closed room. It releases and refreshes the atmosphere. By adopting these Buddhist teachings, we begin a path to authenticity and building a more resilient and powerful mind. 4. The fourth habit that weakens the mind is blaming others for our problems. When we rely on this thought pattern, it's like trying to run a race with a backpack full of rocks on our back. It hinders and slows our progress because we shift our responsibility to others, thus losing control over our own lives. Instead of taking responsibility for our actions, blaming turns others into the masters of our lives, and we become simplistic spectators. Buddhist teachings, however, teach us about karma, the law of cause and effect, which emphasizes that every action has a consequence. When we blame others, we ignore this truth and refuse to acknowledge the role we play in shaping our own experiences. To break this habit, we must embrace personal responsibility. It teaches us that we have the power to influence our lives, and that no matter what obstacles we face, we are the ones who can navigate the storms. Taking responsibility means recognizing our power to make positive choices and change direction. Another essential aspect is forgiveness, which plays a crucial role in overcoming guilt. Forgiveness does not mean that what others have done is acceptable, but it is a way of freeing ourselves from the burden of resentment. It's like putting down a backpack full of rocks. We feel lighter and freer. By practicing forgiveness, we not only release ourselves from negative feelings, but we reconnect with our inner strength. Through mindfulness, we can become aware of the times when the tendency to blame arises and choose a different path. It's like shining a light on a dark road. We see more clearly the direction we want to follow. Instead of focusing on the mistakes of others, we turn our attention to what we can control ourselves. Thus, by letting go of the habit of blame and taking responsibility, we change the stones in our backpack into wings that help us rise and propel us forward. This is the key to a stronger and more resilient mind. 5. The fifth habit that weakens the mind is imagining instead of visualizing. Losing yourself in fantasies is like building castles in the air. They look beautiful, but they have no solid foundation. This habit weakens our minds because it disconnects us from the reality of the present and the real possibilities of our lives. Fantasies often involve unrealistic scenarios and wishful thinking, such as waiting for a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. A nice idea, but one that has no basis in reality. When we get lost in fantasy, it's like chasing mirages in a desert. Fantasy makes us lose sight of the beauty of the present and often brings us disappointment because reality does not line up with the imaginary scenarios in our minds. Visualization, on the other hand, is a mental process much more grounded in reality. It involves creating mental images of achievable goals, like having a treasure map to help you chart your way to success. In Buddhism, right intention and right action are essential. These align with visualizing positive outcomes and taking practical steps to achieve them. Visualization takes a more realistic and practical approach to life, helping us build a bridge between dreams and achievable goals. Buddhist teachings on impermanence remind us that everything is constantly changing. Fantasies tend to cling to a fixed idea of the future, while visualization helps us adapt to the changing reality of life. It's like learning to ride the waves instead of trying to cling to the shore. To overcome the habit of getting lost in fantasies, mindfulness becomes a valuable tool. It's like putting on a pair of glasses that help you see the present clearly. By becoming aware of thoughts, we can guide the mind from fantasy to realistic and positive visualizations. It allows us to appreciate the present moment while actively working towards our goals. By adopting these teachings, we move away from unrealistic fantasies and toward a visualization that motivates and anchors us in the present. It becomes a powerful ally in manifesting positive realities and gives us a clear and resilient direction in life. 6. The sixth habit that weakens the mind is the neglect of personal relationships. Neglecting the relationships in our life is like having a garden, but forgetting to water the plants. Over time, everything begins to wither. This habit makes our minds weaker because humans are social beings and meaningful. Connections bring us joy, support, and fulfillment. Neglecting relationships is similar to trying to sail a boat without wind. We can make progress, but the journey will be slow and lonely. Buddhism teaches that relationships must be cultivated through mindful presence and attention. Not making time for loved ones is like closing the door to a warm and welcoming home, depriving ourselves of the comfort and support that relationships can provide. In the absence of time and attention to relationships, weeds begin to appear. Misunderstandings, emotional distance, and feelings of isolation. Over time, the lack of meaningful interactions can weaken our minds as we feel lonely and disconnected. Healthy relationships take time and effort to thrive, just as a garden requires constant tending to flourish. To overcome this habit, we can start by being present. Presence is like sunlight to relationships. It helps them grow and flourish. When we spend quality time with our loved ones, it is like watering the plants regularly, strengthening the bonds and connections between us. Communication is another essential aspect. It is like the wind filling the sails of a boat, propelling us forward. Through open and honest communication, we share our thoughts and feelings, building a deeper understanding. In addition, Buddhism reminds us of the impermanence of life, including the time we have with our loved ones. It's like savoring a delicious meal. We appreciate it more knowing it won't last forever. Understanding the fleeting nature of time motivates us to prioritize relationships and invest our precious time in those who matter to us. Incorporating these teachings into our lives reminds us that personal relationships are the threads that weave the fabric of our well-being. When we make time for our loved ones, we cultivate a support system that strengthens our minds and enriches our lives. By freeing ourselves from the habit of neglecting relationships, we navigate the journey of life with our loved ones, making the journey more joyful and fulfilling. 7. The seventh habit that weakens the mind is letting our emotions rule us. Allowing our emotions to control us is like being swept away by a strong river current. We lose direction and control. This habit weakens our minds because uncontrolled emotions can become overwhelming and distract us from our goals and values. It's like being in a storm without a compass. We get carried away by the turbulence and it becomes difficult to find our balance. Buddhism teaches us to practice mindfulness to notice emotions without getting carried away by them. It's like standing on the bank of a river and watching the water flow. We see the emotions, we recognize them, but we don't get caught up in their maelstrom. This practice allows us to recognize emotions without being enslaved by them. When we let our emotions rule us, it's like sailing through a storm. Without an anchor, we're being carried in all directions, losing control of our direction. Instead, emotional intelligence, i.e. the ability to recognize, understand and manage one's own emotions, but also to empathize with others, is essential. It's like having a compass in a storm. It helps us navigate through challenges and stay on course. Buddhism recommends practices such as loving kindness metta, meditation to cultivate compassion for ourselves and others. It is like planting seeds of compassion in our hearts, seeds that will grow into a garden of patience and understanding. By practicing this type of meditation, we respond to our emotions with gentleness and kindness, instead of reacting impulsively or being overwhelmed. By cultivating emotional intelligence, we learn to understand emotions, manage them, and use them constructively. Instead of being at the mercy of emotional storms, we become captains of our own ship, guided by clarity and compassion. By incorporating these teachings into our lives, we free ourselves from the habit of letting our emotions rule us and develop a more balanced and powerful mind. 8. The eighth habit that can weaken our mind is trying to control everything. When we try to keep everything under control, it's like trying to hold water in our hands. No matter how much we want to, we can't keep it. Paradoxically, this obsession with controlling every detail of our lives weakens our minds because it makes us feel helpless in the face of things we cannot change. Buddhism teaches us the concept of non-attachment, which involves giving up the illusion that we can control everything. It's like realizing we can't catch the clouds. They're constantly changing and moving. When we try to control everything, it's like trying to hold water in our hands. It will inevitably run through our fingers. Instead, if we learn to adapt and accept change, we will feel freer and stronger. The key to breaking this habit is mindfulness, a practice that helps us anchor ourselves in the present and be aware of the things we can influence. It is like an anchor that keeps us steady during the storm. Instead of focusing on the things we can't control, we learn to put our energy into the things we can have a real impact on. This mindset helps us navigate life's uncertainties with more grace and resilience. Buddhism urges us to embrace the paradox too. Understand that when we let go of the need to control everything, we actually free ourselves and become stronger. It's like understanding that by loosening the grip, we gain more freedom of movement. This acceptance of uncertainty strengthens our minds and gives us the resources to face life's challenges with more calmness and confidence. By letting go of the desire to control everything and embracing the idea that life is constantly changing, we become more flexible and resilient. We free ourselves from the burden of control and focus on the things that really matter. In this way, we strengthen our mind and achieve a state of inner balance. 8. The eighth habit that can weaken our mind is trying to control everything. When we try to keep everything under control, it's like trying to hold water in our hands. No matter how much we want to, we can't keep it. Paradoxically, this obsession with controlling every detail of our lives weakens our minds because it makes us feel helpless in the face of things we cannot change. Buddhism teaches us the concept of non-attachment, which involves giving up the illusion that we can control everything. It's like realizing we can't catch the clouds. They're constantly changing and moving. When we try to control everything, it's like trying to hold water in our hands. It will inevitably run through our fingers. Instead, if we learn to adapt and accept change, we will feel freer and stronger. The key to breaking this habit is mindfulness, a practice that helps us anchor ourselves in the present and be aware of the things we can influence. It is like an anchor that keeps us steady during the storm. Instead of focusing on the things we can't control, we learn to put our energy into the things we can have a real impact on. This mindset helps us navigate life's uncertainties with more grace and resilience. Buddhism urges us to embrace the paradox too. Understand that when we let go of the need to control everything, we actually free ourselves and become stronger. It's like understanding that by loosening the grip, we gain more freedom of movement. This acceptance of uncertainty strengthens our minds and gives us the resources to face life's challenges with more calmness and confidence. By letting go of the desire to control everything and embracing the idea that life is constantly changing, we become more flexible and resilient. We free ourselves from the burden of control and focus on the things that really matter. In this way, we strengthen our mind and achieve a state of inner balance. 9. The ninth habit that weakens our mind is living in the past. It's like carrying a backpack full of old, heavy stuff that slows us down and prevents us from enjoying the present or looking to the future. Being stuck in past events, whether regrets, mistakes or traumas, prevents us from moving forward and living life to the fullest. In Buddhism, the concept of impermanence is central. Everything in life is constantly changing, and this includes the past. It is like a constantly flowing river. The water is never the same. When we cling to the past, it's like trying to swim against the current. We lose our energy and become stuck in a reality that no longer exists. To get out of the habit of living in the past, Buddhism teaches us the practice of forgiveness, both for others and for ourselves. Forgiveness is like opening the door and letting the past go. We release the weight we carry and give ourselves the chance to live the present with ease and openness. At the same time, mindfulness plays an essential role in this process. It helps us to be aware of the present moment and stop being absorbed by thoughts related to the past. When we practice mindfulness, it's as if we choose to focus on the journey ahead of us, not what was behind us. Instead of constantly looking in the rearview mirror, we turn our attention to what's ahead. Letting go of the past does not mean forgetting or denying what happened, but accepting and learning from past experiences without letting those memories define our present or future. By practicing forgiveness, mindfulness, and acceptance of impermanence, we allow ourselves to live with more ease and openness, building a stronger and more resilient mind. 10. The 10th habit that can weaken our minds is constantly worrying about what others are saying and doing. It is like building a house on unstable ground. It becomes vulnerable to every storm of outside opinions and criticism. When we let our minds be influenced by the opinions of others, we lose our balance and feel fragile in the face of change. Judging ourselves based on the opinion of others is like holding a mirror in someone else's hand and looking at ourselves through their perspective instead of seeing ourselves as we really are. In Buddhism, a central concept is equanimity, that state of calmness and stability in the face of praise and criticism. Practicing equanimity is like standing firmly on solid ground regardless of the strong winds that blow around us. Mindfulness plays an essential role in this process. It's like an anchor that keeps us connected to the present moment, allowing us to notice worries and judgments without getting caught up in them. By being aware of the present, we can detach from the constant need for approval from others and stay true to our values and identity. Another powerful solution is self-love. This is like planting seeds of kindness towards ourselves, and these seeds grow into a garden of self-acceptance and confidence. When we recognize our intrinsic value and appreciate our unique qualities, we build a shield against external criticism and develop strong mental resilience. By accepting ourselves and practicing equanimity, we can free ourselves from worrying excessively about what others say and do. Instead of being swayed by every opinion or criticism, we stand firm on our path, building a strong mind capable of facing external pressures with confidence and inner peace. These are the 10 habits that, if not addressed and corrected, can weaken our minds. Each one is an opportunity for personal growth, and Buddhist teachings give us the tools to overcome them and build a strong and resilient mental life. These habits may seem harmless at first, but over time, they can weaken our minds and take us away from the balanced and fulfilling life we want. But the good news is that we can choose to make changes. Through awareness, practice, and patience, we can train our minds to be stronger, more resilient, and more ready to face life's challenges. Buddhist teachings give us a clear path to replace these negative habits with ones that strengthen us. Mindfulness, self-love, compassion, and acceptance are just a few of the tools we can use to build a healthier mind and a more fulfilling life. So, I invite you to reflect on these habits and start today to make small changes that can transform your life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts with us in the comments. Until next time, take care of yourself and your sanity.